All right, let me tell you how I became a stay-at-home mom after being a teacher for 9.5 years and being almost $100,000 in debt. All right, so first of all, I never thought growing up that I would even want to be a stay-at-home mom. My mom actually worked very long hours. She was a manager at a retail store. So I just never even thought about being a stay-at-home mom. Now, because she did work those long hours, I knew I wanted some sort of career that would give me a little bit more freedom and would allow me to be with my kids more. So I decided to go into teaching. Now, I absolutely loved being a teacher. It was so much fun and I just really enjoyed it. But once I had my first baby and had to go back to work and drop him off at daycare, my heart was broken every single day. And that was when the idea of becoming a stay-at-home mom was put on my heart. However, we had almost $100,000 in debt at this point. We had a couple of cars that we had payments for. We had student loans. We had a brand new screened-in porch that we had put on the back of our house. So we just had, and a few credit cards. So we just had all this debt. And my husband actually was in medical sales. He still is, but he was in medical sales and his company did not offer health insurance benefits. So when we did the math, there was absolutely no way that we were going to be able to have me stay at home and then pay out of pocket for health insurance and then also pay all of the bills and all of the debt that we had accumulated over the years. So at this point, I was just praying for some miracle, some way to be able to become a stay-at-home mom. And it wasn't until a few years later, we actually came across Financial Peace University through our church. We started Financial Peace University, we wrote down all of our debts, and we started actually paying them off from the smallest debt to the largest debt, and it's what you call a snowball method. So once that smallest debt was paid off, then we would take what we owed on that smallest, or what we were paying for that smallest debt, that payment each month, and we would put it on the next smallest debt and keep going until all of our debts were paid off. And then at this time, I had also started, this is just like a random thing that happened. I had started an Etsy shop and I was making t-shirts. So I started making these t-shirts for my kids I actually had a silhouette at the time. I use a Cricut now, which I absolutely love. But I had a silhouette and I started making these shirts and selling them on Etsy. So I'd started this little Etsy shop and I was taking any money that I made from that Etsy shop and throwing it on our debts as well. During this time, we hardly ever went out to eat. If we went out to eat, we would go eat Mexican because it was actually pretty cheap. But most of the time, we were strategically planning the cheapest meals possible, penny pinching any way that we could, selling anything that we could on Facebook Marketplace, whatever we had to do so that we could get all of our debts paid off. After, I think it was about a year and a half, we finally had everything paid off and we decided to sell our house. We wanted to move to a city that was not too far away, and so we bought some land. We actually put like a small down payment on this land and we rented a house for a year while we built. And during that year, we actually didn't pay anything on the house and we were able to save like crazy during that year and be able to put a big down payment on our house when we were ready to move in. So now at this point, we are completely debt-free, and I was in my 9th year of teaching at a new school, actually, in a new city, the new city that we had moved to, and we were saving up to put a huge down payment on a house. We had no bills except for our regular utilities. My husband was actually making a little bit more money at this time. And if you don't know about medical sales, this is another thing, is they are all on commission. So it's not like they have this set paycheck every single month. They get paid off of what they sell. So originally when I was wanting to stay at home, Chance just was not making a whole lot of money at that point either. And so by this time, he had pretty much doubled, well, maybe not doubled, but he had greatly increased his income We were debt free and about to move into a new house, and I had my Etsy shop, which was also bringing in almost as much money as I was bringing in teaching. So that last year that I was teaching, we, like I said, were in that rental, and I don't know if it was the rental or if it was stress or what, but I stayed sick all year long. I felt like I always had a cold, just always felt like icky and never felt well. And so I decided, well, I didn't really decide. I talked to Chance and I was like, you know what? I think it's time. We have worked our booties off to get where we are. And like I said, my Etsy shop was bringing in some money. So I did feel like, well, at least I can contribute like with groceries and the kids' sports and all of that kind of stuff. So we had the discussion and we felt like it was time for me to quit teaching and stay at home with my babies. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm like super selfish or anything like that, because teaching was such a great career as a mom. But even as a teacher, I just felt like I was still missing out on so much. I wasn't able to go to like their Christmas parties, field day, field trips. I wasn't able to volunteer in the classroom and all of those things. And maybe not everybody wants to do that, but that was definitely something that I felt like I really wanted to do. And I don't know if it's because of my childhood and, you know, just my mom working so much and having to miss so much, and just knowing how it felt to not have her there at like, you know, those special events and see all the other kids with their parents there. And so, and nothing, my mom did amazing. She was an amazing mom, and I know that that's just what she had to do for our family, and I commend her, and I feel like she's superwoman. So if you're a working mom and you have to work and you're doing all that you can to support your kiddos, they know that. They know that, trust me. And I knew that. But I think that that's why it was on my heart so much to be able to stay home with my kids. And so it was finally possible, and we made the decision. We were like, okay, it is gonna happen. So when my administrator came around and was talking about contracts, I had to tell him that I was not gonna come back, and that obviously I loved having the opportunity to teach at the school I was at, but I was going to take the time to stay at home with my babies. Now, I say stay at home. My kids, Kason was actually going into first grade, and Gracie June was going into pre-K the year that I finally got to stay at home. So really, I didn't have home, like I wasn't at home with them when they were itty bitty and like get to stay at home with them. But I did get to be room mom in both of their classrooms that year. I have been able to attend all of their field trips. I have helped out in the classroom. Every single event that they have had, I have seriously been there for it all. So even though I did not get to stay at home with my kids when they were itty bitty, I do feel like it all worked out, and it was all a part of God's plan. For the kids that I got to teach, the area that we ended up living in, I feel like if I had stayed at home that very first year after having my son, there's no way we would be in the community that we're in the neighborhood that we're in. I would have missed out on so many of the friendships that I now have. And I just feel like the journey that God took us on was what was in our best interest. We are now a lot smarter with our money. We can teach our kids how to manage their money in a biblical way. And I can also say that God definitely answered my prayers. It may not have been in the timeline that I originally wanted for myself, but He definitely answered my prayers. So I hope that my story is encouraging to you. And if there's anything that you're praying for, just know that God hears your prayers, and just be diligent in that. And like I said, it may not be in the timeline that you want it to happen, but God knows your heart and is going to answer your prayers, whether it's a yes, a no, or a grow. So maybe it's a yes, He's going to go ahead and answer your prayers now, or maybe it's a no, that it's just not the best thing for you. He does answer in no's. Or maybe it's a grow, which I feel like ours was definitely a grow. We had some growing to do before I was able to stay at home. That's my story on how I became a stay-at-home mom, which actually is more like a work-from-home mom, because I had my Etsy shop, then I started a YouTube channel, and now I have several different streams of income. But that's another story for another day.